Oh well, I can't believe today is October 10th, 2022. But according to San Diego Comic Con 2022, Dan Jurgens has swung in to team up with Dynamite Entertainment to create a milestone celebration for the 110th anniversary of the world's first ever superhero. Before we had Zorro and Superman and many more supers that came after, there was Tarzan, the Lord of the Jungle. I couldn't believe it's been, 110 years since he got published. This character that made his debut was probably an interesting example. For me, Tarzan has always been a staple to where his first appearance began. Although he last, although Tarzan of the Apes was the first ever book that was novelly published on a pulp magazine titled The All Story that began on October 10th, 1912. Even though before we had King Kong and Planet of the Apes or even Jurassic Park, there was this guy. Even though it was inspired by The Lion King, the story was very simple. In 1888, John Rubb. So, it's revealed that Viscount John Clayton Sr. and his wife, Lady Alice Rutherford Clayton Grace Stoke, who come from England, are marooned into the western coastal jungles of equatorial Africa. Throughout the heart of this rainforest, where it takes place in the same continuity as the Jungle Book. However, when their son John Clayton Jr. was born, he was only 1 year old when his mother was killed, and soon after, his father also got killed by an evil ape named Kerchak. But the infant was then kidnapped by a she-ape named Kala. Throughout the whole story, he became white-skinned, for some people in the ape language believing that he was Tarzan. Although he felt destroyed from the peers due to their shocking differences, he discovers the true parents' cabin because he learns of others like himself in their books who were barefooted. Over the years, they taught him to read English. Although he never heard it, he couldn't speak it. Despite being a mute hero, he would spend his life living in the cabin to visit when he was attacked by a gorilla. He accidentally kills the gorilla with a knife, realizing he got wounded in the struggle, and realized he was a skilled hunter who excited the jealousy of his worst enemy, Kerchak, who tries to attack him. But Tarzan kills Kerchak and takes his place as king of the apes. But his mother, Kala, gets killed by one of the hunters, only to realize that Tarzan makes a rivalry against his tribe, who have blamed him for raiding his village for weapons and practicing terrible pranks on them. They, in turn, regarded him to be an evil spirit hell-bent on placating him. For some reason why, Tarzan was blamed for placating the apes on a Planet of the Apes. However, as Tarzan became 21 years old, when a new party was marooned by the coast, 19-year-old teenager Jane Porter is where Tarzan first saw her. But his cousin William Cecil Clayton is unaware of his ancestral estate of where the ape man would be. But among the party, Tarzan spies on the newcomers and aids them in secret, but he secretly rescues Jane from the perils of the jungle. However, French naval officer Paul Darnot somehow gets rescued by Tarzan from a rescue ship that recovers everyone. But Darnot tells Tarzan to speak French and offers to take him to lead some white men so he can be connected with Jane. But on their journey, Darnot teaches them how to behave among white men In the ensuing months, Tarzan leaves to speak, eventually leads his way in learning how to speak English. But, however, by accident, Tarzan finds himself stranded in Wisconsin, only to realize he rescued Jane from a fire. But Tarzan has learned the bitter news that she has become engaged to William himself. But this time, he takes clues from his parents' cabin and enably convinces Dana to prove his true identity is John Clayton Jr., but who is the Earl of Greystoke. Instead of reclaiming the inheritance of William, Tarzan chooses to rather conceal and renounce his heritage for the sake of Jane's happiness. Although it was a critically acclaimed graphic story, it was quite interesting to believe that this story is by far the best of the bunch. Although it's based on what I saw, there were a lot of ideas of what Tarzan had some interesting connections to the Jungle Book. Since the Jungle Book was published in 1894, I would do a review of its 55th anniversary when it would come out on October 19th. But I might promise where I can find the Jungle Book release date. Jungle Book release info IMDb. Now, speaking of the release info, as I noticed that speaking of the release info, I had been very interested about what the animated adaptation would came to be. Before I could talk about the movie, I noticed when... Oh, it says October 18th, but I could remind myself to review it. I gotta remind myself to remember this day. So, ever since Tarzan was later adapted into an animated movie by Walt Disney Pictures that was released on June 12th, 1999, it added some sort of a new character named Sabor, who didn't appear in the book, would be exclusive to this movie. And although Darnot was adapted out of it, I'm guessing they also added that red elephant. What's the name of that red elephant? Tantor. Did you know Tantor never showed up in the 1912 novel? But eventually, despite this, we also, let's not forget Turk. Although both Turk and Tantor were created, I'm guessing Dana was omitted for a period, so Turk and Tantor would take his place. Although it became the 5th highest grossing film in 1999, it was stunning to realize, for the first time ever, it would open at first place at the USA box office since 1985's Pocahontas, that would receive a Broadway adaptation, a TV series, and 2 follow-ups, Tarzan and Jane and Tarzan 2. Although, the true meaning of the songs that I like in the soundtrack, I noticed that Brendan Fraser and Tony Hawk were considered for the role of Tarzan, but Tony Goldwyn was chosen instead. Well, despite their casting choices, I noticed the music is quite awesome. Phil Collins did dedicate his life making these awesome songs like Two Worlds, You Be in My Heart, Son of Man, and Strangers Like Me. Although the animation is amazing, I'd give this one a 9 out of 10 because it's one of my favorite Disney animated films that I grew up watching. But sadly, in my opinion, it was the final Disney animated feature film to be released at the end of the Disney Renaissance era. Although this would mark the first time since 1967's The Jungle Book, which came out on October 18th, 1967. And it's also the 55th anniversary of this movie. I know I'm paying tribute to both of these movies, as I know The Jungle Book and Tarzan are the same movie. Since Mowgli was just a failed child raised in the Indian jungle by wolves, his friends Bagheera the panther and Baloo the bear want to convince him to leave the jungle to stop a tiger named Shere Khan from getting him killed. Although it was the 9th highest grossing movie of 1967, I'd give this one a 9 out of 10. Although both of the films were quite awesome, the Sherman Brothers have made 5 songs, and Gilkinson did the bare necessities. And it also received 2 live-action adaptations from 1984 and a sequel in 2003. The music is quite awesome. That I'd appreciate these two for the day of what I celebrated. Although the form of home had a budget of $4 million, it grossed up to $378 million. Although the latter home had a budget of $130 million and grossed up to $448.2 million. Although it's awesome, I noticed that, sadly, The Jungle Book was the final film to be produced by Walt Disney, who passed away on December 15th, 1966, in Burbank, California, at the age of 65, which happened 10 days after his 65th birthday happened. Although, it felt like there's a huge connection of what I saw in the jungle. What I've learned something about wild mass guessing is that the way I see Raja, the tiger, he's basically some sort of a love child of Shere Khan from Aladdin and taken from Winnie the Pooh. And for Parsi the jaguar is also a love child to Sable the leopard from Tarzan. As I know, both Aladdin and Kanto have the same big cats involved in it. Yeah, we'll just give this one a shout out. But that's really all I can say about this and that one. For as long as I can remember, I could really say goodbye to you all now.